Welcome to Author Master Insights. I am with Phyllis Ginsberg, and this is going to be another conversation for the simple reason this book, Empowered You, is such an important part of creating breakthrough in our personal life. Before we begin the conversation, welcome, Phyllis. It's wonderful to connect with you again. I always love speaking with you.
Yes, thank you.
Well, for those not familiar with the incredible breakthrough and groundbreaking work that Phyllis does, she is a thrival expert, meaning that she's helped countless individuals rise above this point of survival that we have in life to thrive, to live an empowered and full, rich and really meaningful life, facing challenges and adversities, overcoming those to experience the fullness of life. She's an international speaker, the author of 2 books, Brain Makeover and Tired and Hungry No More. And now with this absolute classic, Empowered You, Phyllis is going to lead people to free themselves from generational conditioning to create resilience, health, happiness, and confidence, and ultimately a better quality of life. And I think this is such an important message, which is why I wanted to have this conversation with you. So before we begin around this process, I just want to acknowledge and appreciate you, Phyllis. This is such a timely message, an important conversation that we need to have. And I know the investment that goes into writing and the value that it brings to people. So I appreciate you for this, for the work that you've done and the changes you've made in people's lives. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much for acknowledging that. I will receive that.
Appreciate that. Let's begin with Empowered You. I want to capture the thoughts around the title, the subtitle, and I do want to talk deep to the generational conditioning, because I think that is something that has not received enough attention. But the word empowered, there's so much that goes into that, but what specifically are you meaning by empowered, and empowered you, the person who reads this book?
So an empowered you to me is somebody who has gone from growing up in the traditional way, right? We're little humans that are so powerless. We can't do anything for ourselves when we're born, and it takes us several years, if not a whole decade, to be somewhat sufficient to do much of anything. We might learn how to cook or clean, and we might not even be able to do our homework by ourselves, right? So we're brought up dependent, and just because we turn 18 or of legal age does not mean that we are now independent, empowered, that we can make our way in the world in a way that we aren't listening to other people's expectations of us. And that's so vital.
Oh, okay. You just said something I think that is so significant. Other people's expectations of us. So inherent or implicit in that statement is what a lot of people will not even be aware is that they may have conditioned beliefs. Is what I'm hearing there. We grow up, yes, you look at some of the animal kingdom, and at the birthing process, they can immediately run because they have to survive. The human nature is different. We are created, there's an environment in which we are nurtured and grown, but a lot of people don't get out of that place of independence because some of the conditioning they have, whether it's their parents, their preachers, their teachers, they have this sense of learned helplessness, almost a dependency, because they haven't been given the opportunity or been challenged to expand their own way of perceiving the world, seeing the world, or engaging and interacting with the world. So the empowered person, so you can grow up and still have a sense of, I know who I am, I've got a job, I'm studying, but I'm not really free. I haven't yet liberated my habits or behaviors or conditioned response that society or the family or the world we live in has generated. Is that what you're talking about, is breaking free from some of those unconscious constraints?
Exactly. The word freedom to me means that I can choose to change the rules of how I was brought up. If I want to, let's say I want to clean the house in a different order than I was brought up in. If you don't consciously think about that, you're going to do what you've normally done. You're programmed to do so many things on autopilot. It's our brain being super efficient. And that's great for a lot of things, but it's not great for those times where you're doing things that they got to get done, like housework and laundry, maybe going to work, having a job, or going to school and studying. And there are different ways than we were brought up. If you, for example, are a student, or you're taking in new information, God knows there's so much changing every single day, just with our electronics and the internet, that if you're somebody who doesn't read real fast, maybe you'd rather somebody show you, or you'd rather watch than listen to something. If you're visual versus auditory, like there's so many different ways. If we honor ourselves, to me, that's empowering.
And you've highlighted the individual ways that people can grow and learn and expand their potential. What about and I think that's really important that people realize that they will have their own way of expanding their own potential. However, I think of people that I know here in my practice and that I've seen out in the world, and that comment can still feel a little bit defeating. It's not that they don't know that they could read in a different way or get somebody to guide them, but they lack the motivation and perhaps even the energy or the psychological impetus to then move in the direction of those nuanced ways of growth and learning to find their freedom. What do you say to those people? And this is really a breakthrough question. How do people who aren't feeling like they're capable of change harness their inner power to make that change?
That's a really important question, because so many people are afraid of change, and they think it's going to be hard and it's going to take a long time, or maybe they don't have what it takes. And if you look at that, just one small perspective change, one step in the direction that you want to go in, could make a world of difference. It doesn't mean that you got to take like huge leaps. You don't have to do a whole bunch of things at once. But for a lot of us, we weren't brought up with encouragement. Parents and teachers aren't always supportive and encouraging and say, yeah, you can do it. And so if we got the message growing up that we weren't good at certain things like math or science or English, or we were compared to our siblings who were better at other things than us, we have things like these messages running in the background that we may not be aware of as adults. And so as soon as you could become conscious of, there might be something else going on that was deep-seated a long time ago that keeps us from moving forward. That's a big part of this book, because most of us don't have a clue what's in our subconscious.
I love that. And it is a big part of the book, which is why, again, generational conditioning, I wanted to refer to that because, there's and what you're talking about, there is sometimes we don't know what we don't know because it's been so unconscious within our conditioning and our pattern behavior, and the changes that we would like to make isn't necessarily easy to achieve because we're unaware of where those blocks and limitations are. The generational conditioning is such an unaddressed topic, yet it is so powerfully profound. I mean, there is a lot of conversation in psychology of generational trauma and how the fact that a person who may not have gone through traumatic experiences may have a lack of resilience, and you speak of resilience and its role in terms of confidence and happiness in your book. And so these past events of our lives can unconsciously be shaping our future, our choices, our behaviors, and even our capacity to make those changes. How is the generational conditioning and the past events so impactful on a person in the present?
So I like to think about this example of, if our parents, grandparents, maybe their parents grew up at a time, let's say the war, World War I, World War II, and we had the Great Depression. Like, those are significant periods of time that created fear, probably lack and scarcity mindsets. There were a lot of, let's say, just medically, the lifespan wasn't that long. Children didn't all survive. There were a lot more kids that didn't make it, either at birth or even through childhood. And so if you take a look at survival thinking, which is what we've all been passed down with, we are the generation, like, now is the time to look at that survival thinking and see, does it pertain to us today, or might there be a better way to think about situations? And that's a big example of generational conditioning.
When and again, I love the way that you move from survival to thrival within your book, within the work that you do with individual coaching and professional speaking, because you've highlighted, I think, what most people are not even necessarily aware of. They think, oh, my parents went through a tough time, but and maybe that's why they're not as connected to me, or why they're harder on me than they should be, or they're distant or remote in certain ways. And we look at people who've gone through difficult times, challenging times, that have maybe made them work really hard, and they then say, we had to work hard. We walked 40 miles to school in the snow. We had to literally, I mean, this is my story. My father, tells me those stories, and how his village was bombed for the grain and the wars that they went through, and he flees the country to come to Australia. And so there's these stories of the trauma they go through, and they worked so hard when they come to another country that they create almost a remoteness, and you aren't even aware that necessarily that they're doing that, because they're still in survival mode, and to some degree they pass that on. So your whole book is about breaking free from those patterns of survival into finding a way to thrive, and therefore create this compelling vision for your life. So if you were to, we take all of that into consideration, and the book is rich with content and information and processes and strategies to create breakthrough. But if you were to bring that into almost a pivotal statement of what people can expect in reading the book, and what will happen as a byproduct and outcome of that, what would you share as part of that message?
I think that the biggest takeaway that somebody could get from reading the book is that they will know themselves better than they did before. They will also discover that the worst is behind them, and that they do have some control over their future and their thinking. And when you take all that into consideration, with the tools and the abilities to make some, I'm going to say they're going to be major changes, but they're minor changes. Like you have the control to do them as fast or as slow as you want. You need to be comfortable enough so you don't revert back to those old familiar comfortable patterns that I call comfortably uncomfortable.
I just want to echo those 3 points and put them contextually for me, which hopefully means it's relevant to other people. So know yourself better. For me, that if I look at that and go, okay, know the way that my parents raised me may have some level of conditioning upon the way that I behave now. Know that I've got certain fears, doubts, or uncertainties, insecurities, or strengths and ways of behaving and moving forward. So knowing myself is all of those elements and more. That how the past influences the present, how my strengths in the present can influence my future, and how I can harness them. And then you mentioned as well, that part of it is the worst is behind you. And that means that if you recognize, yes, you may have gone through some challenging and difficult times, and if you know and recognize yourself there, you can then step boldly into a new world, because as that third point is, you can make different choices. You can make rapid change, or slow and progressive change, comfortable change, or dynamic change, whatever it is you feel resourced and equipped and capable of doing. And having a book to guide you through that is an imperative process. You can then redesign and recalibrate your life for this empowered, extraordinary experience with health, happiness, confidence, and resilience to the challenges that you face, so that your life and the world becomes better. Have I captured that summary?
You did an excellent job capturing that. And I want to say that one of the reasons that I wrote this book is that I work with some really super creative, intelligent, great people. They might be I've worked with doctors and lawyers and business owners, entrepreneurs. I'm not talking about people who are struggling with big traumas, although this book will help people with that. But everyday people feeling doubtful of themselves, having insecurities, there are reasons why we do what we do, or we don't succeed at the things that we so much desire to succeed at. And if you were brought up with messages like, it's not okay to attract attention to yourself, or don't be selfish. So that can really impact someone's ability to thrive in an environment where it'd be great to take in and celebrate with coworkers, or maybe you created something that was super like well received and you feel bad because people are giving you attention. That's not good.
I think that really encapsulates so much of the dynamic of this book. It's, yes, there are people out there, as you said, who have been through horrific and traumatic experiences, and they do need support, and there's breakthrough there within this material. For the average person who might think, oh, it's not that bad, it's just not that all that I'd hoped it could be, all that I would want for my life. And I, sometimes feel like I'm surviving and keeping my head above water because I've got the family commitments, the finance commitments, I've got, all of these competing demands. You're giving them a blueprint to recognize where they are at, how some of those elements of where they're at now have come from past conditioning, and to create a breakthrough blueprint to actually then design the way forward to all those things they had hoped for and imagined possible, and therefore a pathway to creating that in their life now, over time, naturally, but in a really clear, definitive way.
Yes. And I'm going to say, it doesn't have to be difficult, and it doesn't have to take a long time. Just got to get started.
Yeah, and it does make a difference when you do it. And as I said, this book, I think it's so beautifully written. It's very succinct, and the chapters make it really clear as to the blueprint. And you're working through so many issues like, divorce and long-term conflicts, communication and relationships. So some of those really challenging aspects that come up, but then also the happiness and being loved, dealing with disapproval, work and money. You're dealing with sickness, injuries, mental health. You are literally addressing the most common challenges people face that are limiting them from their lives and the experiences they want, providing a breakthrough blueprint and a strategy to move forward. This is such an important body of work for people, profound insight to why people are not experiencing the lives that they desire, the capacity to move in that direction. I want everybody to go grab their copy. The link will be down below. You can make the changes from where you are now to where it is you'd ideally like to be. Phyllis, you have contributed so powerfully through the books you've already written and this work as well to people's lives becoming better, more fulfilling and more complete. I just want to appreciate it. Acknowledge you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I appreciate you having me on so that we could share this information and get it out to as many people as possible.
Yeah, we need this information, so thank you. So everyone, grab your copy. Phyllis, appreciate you. Let's go change the world together.
Sounds good.